We are back in Indianapolis, and one of the most successful young coaches in college football taking over now in East Lansing. Jonathan Smith coming over from his alma mater of Oregon State. Really got it going in his last 3 years there, winning 25 games, including 10 victories 2 years ago. Pretty good QB in his day, threw for nearly 10,000 yards in his Beaver career. And Jonathan Smith is joining us now at his first Big Ten Media Days. Coach, welcome to the conference. First of all, we're thrilled to have you. Obviously, you've had a lot on your plate since you took over at Michigan State in November. How would you compare where you are right now to where you were then a number of months ago?
Yeah, I think we've made a lot of progress, a lot going on in 8 months, a lot of work to do. Think about, obviously initial players, recruiting, putting a staff together, getting aligned in a hurry through January, February, leading into spring practice. And then we feel really good about the summer, the work that got done in June on the recruiting side and tightening up details for fall camp coming up. But probably the most important month we've had together will be the month of August, getting ready for the season.
I know a lot of this is to be determined in camp, kind of as you're alluding to. You'll learn a lot about your team in the next month or so. But what do you feel best about as you head into this first season?
Yeah, I feel really good about the mentality. These guys love football. Being around them, they like practicing. They like being around each other in the weight room, the work ethic, extra time with coaches. I do like that about this team. I think about, this month coming up. Spring ball, implementing brand new schemes, right? Offense, defense, a lot of learnings going on. Now truly having a competitive camp in August to earn spots on the depth chart.
Coach, I say this as a guy that was 1-3 against Michigan State in my career, so I mean this in the right way. But, you look at Michigan and Michigan State, you look at Oregon and Oregon State, and like Michigan and Oregon were the bigger brands. And I felt that whenever we played Coach D'Antonio, he leveraged that to his locker room. And you knew that you were going to get some extra juice in that rivalry game. Do you do that? Did you draw on that at all at Oregon State? Will you draw on that at all at Michigan State?
I definitely would draw on similar experiences being an in-state rivalry. Yeah. I look at my whole coaching career was a part of an in-state rivalry, and it's one of the best things about college football, I think, is to having those type of rivalries, meaningful, passionate fan bases. The games mean a bunch. And so when we get to that point, we'll have our guys ready to go.
Okay, let's talk style of play. Right? You didn't grow up in Big Ten country, but now you're coaching at Michigan State. It feels, though, like your style that we saw in offense at UW when you're the coordinator or the head coach at Oregon State mirrors like what we think of when we close our eyes and say, Michigan State, what do they look like?
Yeah.
Do you feel that now having been there for a few months?
I feel that, the style play on the offensive side, we want to make the thing physical and all that. Obviously, you're trying to make sure you're putting your players in the best positions possible, and this is a new roster and all of that. But, Big Ten has been known, physical brand of play. But I will tell you, there is some skill in this league. There's some quarterback play, innovative on the coaching side. It's not just all 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
Coach, I felt Joe Rossi has been one of the more underrated coordinators in our conference going back a few years now. Michigan State in recent history struggled defensively. Rossi, I think he had 2 of the last 3 seasons, top 10 scoring defenses, just a phenomenal coordinator. What has it been like getting to know him? What areas has he allowed your defensive unit to make the most progress?
Yeah, I think he's been a huge addition for us. We're very fortunate him signing up to do this thing and now being around him, seeing how he implements schemes, seeing how he teaches, organizes, not just for the players, even the coaching staff, that he's got some big-time guys next to him in that group, but felt awesome coming over to a new league and landing a guy with that kind of experience and success in the league was huge.
When you're on the big stage, you reference some of your mentors, Mike Riley, Dennis Erickson, Coach Chris Peterson. They never had to take a team that had 61 new faces and make it come together to compete at a really high level. But I'm sure there's traits that you've pulled from that. How are you doing that this offseason in advance of camp?
Yeah, it's going to be a huge part of August, especially. You talk about 61 new faces, kind of a mindset we got to get to build a deep amount of trust. So it's not going to just be completely schemed during August in football and practice and all of that. We're going to do a bunch on the culture side, making sure we know and trust each other. This is an ultimate team game. And you mentioned the mentors. Well, I learned a bunch of how to do that from those guys, and we'll do similar things.
Well, a big piece of that leadership would be your quarterback, too, and you obviously brought in Aiden Childs with you from Oregon State, a younger guy, but, what pieces about his character allow you to have some confidence that he can immediately come into this new locker room with all the new faces and be the leader of his team?
Yeah, I think he's a connector. He can connect well beyond just like the quarterback room or the receivers. He hangs out with the DBs that are talking and D-line. So he's got that attribute as a leader. I think the game, he got some great instincts of the game, has some experience. And so I think that showed up a little bit in spring ball for some validity for him. And the other thing, he doesn't make him about himself. You know, he's a great teammate, always talking about others, not just himself, and we're looking forward to see his progress throughout the year.
And where does he net out around the word discernment in that position?
Yeah.
You had it.
I give the guy a little bit more experience because I do like his aggressive style, but what he showed and played this last fall with, he had great amount of discernment.
Made a big statement about your tight end, Jack Velling. Not just one of the best in the conference. You felt he could be one of the best in the. He moves really well. I'm excited to see him. Why are you so confident that you could say that about him at this point?
Well, you know, being with him is 2 years and watch his continued progress. He's got natural hands, can separate, will catch contested balls. He's just had some real production, and so if he stays on that type of plane, I do think he could end up being one of the best.
What can we expect his role to be within your offense this fall?
Yeah, we're going to lean on him, no
Yeah.
question. I mean, you know, he's proven that he can play in big games and make big catches and score a bunch of touchdowns. And so try to move him around. Again, he can't be the only weapon, but we want to make sure we're maximizing him.
He's a young Jake Butt.
Yeah,
That's
Jake's always good for a tight end question, isn't he?
I'm going to take my chances. When I get a chance, I'm going to take it.
Okay, help me settle this one, because Coach and I have been talking about this on set. You know, there's a theory that in the Big Ten, it's a physical brand of football. You came from a physical league, especially the last year that you were there, last year at Oregon State. What do you think about it? I'm sure you've advanced scouted and watched a lot of tape of the opponents you'll play in this league. And do you feel that way where you came from?
Well, I felt like these 4 new schools coming over, they played a physical brand. You look at the way Washington and Oregon played the game last year, they were as physical as anybody. And again, I talk Big Ten, it talks about physicality, and there is that. But again, this thing has dynamic playmakers, wide open, and some exotic stuff on offense. It's not, like I say, it's not just 3 yards cloud dust.
We live in an instantaneous world, right? Like you bring in, there's a lot of excitement around, you being hired to Michigan State, of course, an urgency to win. But I look back at your time at Oregon State, and it took some time. The final 3 years looked different than the first 3 years. And I'm just curious, as a leader, how you balance the need to be urgent to win now, but the perspective to be patient that, great things do take time.
Yeah, I think it helps going through the process because, we're not patient as coaches, right? We're not going to try to sit and go slow. At the same time, I think responding to setbacks, knowing that first year, call them hiccups, might take place type thing, but it's dramatically different, the landscape now than it was when I started 6 years ago with the portal and how much transition can go on a roster.
All right, I know you're giving a lot of advice to your players, but Nate Carter, you referenced how he got married. Like you and Candace, you give him any advice here in advance of the season? He's going to be away from the house for a lot of time here preparing year one.
I tell him, don't choose to be right, just choose to be happy. And that's what worked out for me.
He's just got married.
I just got married 3 months ago.
Write it down.
I'm going to
down.
take some notes and appreciate it.
Take some notes, no question about it. I want to ask you just about a formula at Michigan State. Like Michigan State is a place that in the 4-team college football playoff world made the college football playoff. So, I mean, this is a place where you can win at the very highest level. As you have assessed it, maybe even in your decision-making process when you were weighing whether or not to take the job, but certainly in the time since you've arrived there, what do you see as the path for Michigan State to be among the elite programs in the game?
Well, because you're right. Some part of that looking at Michigan, they've done it before, and they've played at the biggest stage. I do think, building a roster inside out, I looked at some of those really good teams they had back in the day. A lot of those guys, Michigan, Ohio, driving distance from the campus. And so we're taking that approach in the recruiting side. Not that it's going to be completely, but a good amount. We want to build the thing inside out. And I look at those teams that make the thing physical, and come in the elements in the end of the year, a team that can be able to finish physically. We want to take that approach.
So that's the destination. That's where you're trying to get. How about this year? How do you define success for this program this year?
Yeah, I'm not going to dodge. We want to win. I'm not, coming in and all of those things. We want to win more than we lose. I want to be playing our best football at the end of the year. I think if your process is right, you can play game 1 and then game 2, you can be a little bit better. Well, you keep that going for 12 straight games, playing your best football at the end of the year when the games are the most meaningful.
To what extent do you feel like your experience on the West Coast can help you in this newly expanded Big Ten?
Well, I think it helps to, familiar with the 4 schools that are coming on over. Again, on the recruiting side, not that it's just so solely by your campus, heavy amount by your campus or within, but there's players on that West Coast. And I look at schemes across the country, but we're pretty familiar on the West Coast, and there's some good stuff going on over there.
Jonathan Smith, really a pleasure to get a chance to visit with you. Welcome to the Big Ten, as I said, and looking forward to seeing the Spartans on the practice field and then on the playing field this year.
Thanks, guys.